Picture this. You purchase a stunning stretch of land, your own private sanctuary, only to return a year later and discover that someone else has built on it. Not a tiny cabin, not a simple fence. Full-blown luxury mansions. Sounds like fiction, right? It's not. It happened to me. And the way I transformed that disaster into the biggest financial win of my life is almost unbelievable. It began when I found the ideal parcel, just outside the city. It offered the perfect balance. Far enough away for peace and quiet, yet close enough to everything I needed. I signed the paperwork, secured the deed, and imagined the dream home I'd eventually build. Then life intervened. Work demanded travel, and I was gone for nearly a year. I never worried. My land was untouched, paid for, and legally mine, or so I thought. When I finally made the drive back, I felt excited, nostalgic even. But as I approached, my excitement turned into confusion, then dread. Where there should have been an open field, there stood an entire row of massive, elegant mansions. I genuinely thought I had made a wrong turn. I checked my GPS. I checked my map. I even pulled out my deed. The coordinates matched. This was my property. Who builds multi-million-dollar homes on land they don't own? At first, I assumed it had to be some absurd clerical mistake. I started knocking on doors. The homeowners were polite, but puzzled. Each of them had purchased their homes through a developer connected to the local homeowners association, the HOA. Everything, they insisted, had been completely legal. The HOA. The moment I heard that word, my stomach tightened. I'd heard plenty of HOA horror stories, but this was something else entirely. I went straight to their office. I wasn't calm. I wasn't patient. I walked in, slammed my deed on the counter, and demanded an explanation for how an entire neighborhood had been constructed on land that legally belonged to me. The HOA president, a man with a smug half-smile, barely skimmed my documents. He claimed the land had been declared abandoned and legally acquired by the HOA for development. Abandoned? I had been gone a year, not decades. I showed him tax receipts, ownership records, everything. He shrugged and told me it was finalized. The homes were built. Families were living there. Nothing could be done. Then, with stunning audacity, he suggested I could purchase one of the houses if I wanted to live there. That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a land grab. I couldn't fight this alone. The HOA had money, attorneys, and the confidence of people who thought they'd gotten away with something. So I did the only logical thing. I hired the best property lawyer I could find, a relentless bulldog with a reputation for loving complex battles. When I told her what happened, he didn't look worried. He looked thrilled. He explained that declaring land abandoned is an extremely strict legal process. You can't just assume it's abandoned because the owner isn't physically present, especially when that owner is alive, reachable, and paying taxes. The HOA, he believed, had skipped steps, ignored due process, and gambled that I'd never return or wouldn't have the resources to challenge them. Our first action was sending a cease and desist letter. Symbolic, yes. The houses were already standing, but it marked the start of a serious legal fight. The HOA's lawyers responded with arrogance. They insisted everything had been lawful. They buried us in paperwork, delayed proceedings, and clearly hoped the mounting costs would force me to give up. They miscalculated. The legal battle stretched on for months. It drained time, money, and energy. The HOA attempted to portray me as a greedy opportunist trying to exploit innocent homeowners. They spread rumors and tried to turn the community against me. But I had something they couldn't argue with, a valid deed and documented proof of ownership. We compiled evidence. Satellite images showing the empty land before construction, tax payment records, certified surveys, and expert testimony. The facts were undeniable. The HOA had failed to follow proper legal procedures for claiming abandoned property. They hadn't provided proper notice. They had rushed the process. They had gambled. Finally, our day in court arrived. The room was heavy with tension. The HOA president and his legal team sat confidently on one side. On the other, it was just me and my attorney. Methodically, he dismantled their defense. He presented the deed. He presented the tax history. He highlighted the HOA's blatant disregard for due process. The judge was unimpressed with the HOA's conduct. He described their actions as reckless and an overreach of authority. He made it crystal clear. You cannot build on property you do not legally own. The ruling was decisive. The court affirmed that I had always been and remained the sole legal owner of the land. Then came the complicated part. The mansions weren't theoretical. They were standing. Families were living inside them. Demolishing everything wasn't realistic. That's when my lawyer proposed a brilliant solution. Because I owned the land, and the HOA had built on it illegally, the structures technically belonged to me. But evicting dozens of families would have been chaotic and morally questionable. Instead, we presented the HOA with an alternative. They would pay rent, not for the houses, but for the land beneath them. We calculated fair market rental value for each individual lot. Given the location and property size, it wasn't cheap. Multiply that by an entire neighborhood of luxury homes, and the numbers became substantial. The HOA was outraged. They tried negotiating. They tried minimizing the valuation, but their options were limited. Either pay ongoing rent, purchase the land from me at a dramatically inflated price of my choosing, or attempt the impossible task of relocating multi-million-dollar homes. They were cornered. Reluctantly, they agreed. Today, I am technically the landlord of an entire luxury neighborhood. Each month, the very HOA that tried to seize my land sends me a significant check representing the collective ground rent. They collect from the homeowners and transfer a payment to me. The irony is almost poetic. The same organization known for enforcing fees and regulations now pays one. To me, what began as a shocking land grab turned into a steady, substantial stream of passive income. The HOA president can barely meet my eyes anymore. This experience taught me powerful lessons. Never underestimate the boldness of an overconfident HOA. Always safeguard your documentation and understand your rights. And when life hands you lemons, or when someone builds mansions on your lemons, don't settle for lemonade. Build the orchard, then charge rent for the soil. That's my story. A journey from proud landowner to stunned victim to reluctant landlord of a luxury enclave. Sometimes the most outrageous situations lead to the most unexpected and profitable outcomes. Thanks for listening. And if you've got a wild story of your own, I'd love to read it in the comments.